Good to meet you, Paul.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So you're ready for me?
Yes, more or less.
You're in New York, correct?
I'm in East Hampton.
Oh, in East Hampton. Oh, okay. Nice. Very nice.
Our summer home. We've been here since May, sheltering in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Are you anxious to try to get outside and go somewhere else?
We have a 6-acre property. So we just walk around, and then walk on the street because it's you're the only one walking around. If there's someone, a car passes by, a bicycle passes by, things like that. So
Okay.
isolated.
Wow.
And today I went to the bank to have my hair done just to be just to look decent. And went to the bank. Thank you very much, Lucian. And went to the bank. Excuse me. Cheers to you, Paul.
Cheers to you. Here's to my mom. Cheers to you. Cheers.
Yes.
That it's interesting how you mentioned getting your hair done. So I was going to say, so this isn't you every day with pearls and your hair done. That's
prepare. I have to prepare for this.
Yeah.
I have to look good because Mr. Lewis always says, "Loida, you represent me."
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to get into all of that and more. So you're all set, Mrs. Lewis. You're ready. You're ready for this. Okay. Now, what I'm hoping too is my wife is searching for a surprise that hopefully I will be able to show you. I've been looking for this all night long, and hopefully I will be able to show this to you before the end of our time together. So we'll see, right? But let me just say, this truly is the highest honor for me. And I know that a lot of interviewers like to what we call gas the guest up, right? You like to tell the guest how great they are. And a lot of that, quite honestly, are lies. I've been in the interview game for a long time, and I know a lot of interviewers who lie. But I will tell you, this interview is the highest honor of my career. And it's the highest honor because your husband's book, your husband's legacy has changed the trajectory of my life, and I believe the lives of my children and my children's children. That's how much of an impact it's made on my life. I would not be here today if it wasn't for your husband. And so I thank you. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you.
Thank you. You make me cry. Thank you.
This is my honor. What I'd love to do with this discussion is to be able to unpack the life of one of my heroes, your husband, right? And I want to do it in a way that perhaps has never been done before, because we have the honor of having you, getting your insight. But this isn't just simply you recounting his life, but you giving us your opinion and your interpretation of his life, which I think is going to be even more special, because what a lot of people will find throughout this conversation is that you are a formidable professional yourself. You're not just the wife, right? There's a lot more to you. So I want to unpack that as well. But where I would love to really begin, for the people who don't know Reginald Lewis, right? Give us the achievements, just so we can understand how substantial his impact was in the world. I mean, talk to us about the things that he achieved in his life.
Well, maybe we start with the biggest one. All right. In 1987, in the height of the recession, when the market fell on December 1, 1987, he engineered the largest, close to $1 billion leverage buyout of TLC Beatrice International Foods. And what is that? 64 companies all over the world, not United States, but international. 64 companies in 31 countries for $1 billion. So that's the biggest one.
Incredible.
But before that, he was the student that was accepted at Harvard Law School without even applying. All right? Without even applying. He's also the first African American law firm on Wall Street. He is the first African American in an Ivy League school where a building is named after him. Reginald F. International Law Center at Harvard Law School. Why? Because in 1990, he was giving them the largest donation by an individual, $3 million in 1990.
$3 million. Wow. Wow. These are big ones. These are big ones. Can I mention one that I didn't hear you mention, but I often hear attached to him, and it upsets me a little bit, right? So what I often hear is you hear Reginald F. Lewis or Reginald Lewis, the wealthiest African American at the time, right? So in the 1990s, he's the wealthiest African American. Forbes magazine, if you Google Forbes, Reginald Lewis and Forbes, you'll see he was one of the 400 wealthiest men in the United States. But the reason why that rubs me wrong is because he wasn't just one of the wealthiest or the wealthiest African American men. He was one of the wealthiest men in the world. Just remove African American, remove Black. He was just one of the richest men in the world, period. I'm interested, what's your take on that? And what was his take on that at the time? Because it was surreal. It felt surreal from the outside looking in.
Well, I must tell you, when he was young, his goal was to become the wealthiest Black man in America.
Really? I didn't know that.
Well, among ourselves, in his mind, but he mentioned it. He wanted to be the wealthy. Not to me. When he was growing up, when he was, in college, we don't talk about to be rich, to be things like that. There are other things to be successful, to achieve, to do your best. Those are the values, not to be the richest man. But I know at the back of his mind, he wanted to be the richest man in America during his time.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this. This is breaking news. So where did that come from? Because I know, so he grew up in Baltimore, in Maryland, in the United States. Talk to us about the environment that he grew up in, because I'm assuming he didn't come from a wealthy family.
No, not at all. Not at all. So Reginald Lewis was born of Carolyn Cooper and Clinton Lewis.
Okay.
But somehow it didn't work out. So in the middle of the night, Carolyn, the mother, brought the 5-year-old Reginald to the grandparents' house. The grandparents, Grandpa, Sam, and Grandma, already had 8 children and adopted 2 more. So 10. As soon as she came in with young Reginald, 5 years old, the grandfather started cursing. You know what it is. Another mouth to feed. And so the grandmother said, bring Reginald upstairs. He doesn't want to hear all of this cursing. And as he was going up, he heard his mother say, don't worry, Dad, we pay our way. So very early on, the spirit of you're responsible for your own happiness. Don't look to somebody else. You take responsibility for yourself.
Wow. This is a powerful story. Powerful story.
So when he woke up, Mommy, she's gone looking for work. So her mother worked 2 jobs. But always when she comes home, he must be spiffy. So that, he's playing hard, here and there. But by 5 o'clock, he comes back home, take another bath, put on good clothes, and sit on the doorstep waiting for the mother. And all his friends will call him, Reggie, come here. You're not finished with the game. No, he would stay there. So he had already disciplined at 5-year-old.
That's fascinating. So you're saying at 5, he would be playing, and I have a 6-year-old who, my 6-year-old is wild, Mrs. he's a wild one. So, he doesn't even like to wear clothes all the time, right? But it sounds like, so Mr. Lewis at 5 already was self-disciplined to the point where when his mother would arrive home, he was clean, looking sharp, waiting for her.
Yes, that's right. So it's the mother and the grandmother giving him the discipline Okay? Your mother is working 2 jobs. When she comes home, she doesn't want to see a disabled child. All right? So that's one. The other one is the grandmother. The grandmother loved him. And when she is a cleaning woman, she would be the babysitter. But on certain days, she had to clean this white woman's home. And so she would bring him because she's the babysitter. She would see to it that he has something to do, on a corner. And this white lady would say, "Why don't you ask your grandson to help you clean?" And always he said, "Nope, he's special." So
Special.
already at the very young age, he was being given that self-confidence, that self-esteem. He is special. He's going to do great things. So all of this helped him develop his own personality as somebody who can do, somebody who takes responsibility for themselves. And one last thing, the grandmother had taught him how to save because the grandfather is was head waiter salary. But when he comes home, he had all of his change and he would distribute it to his young children. And at that time, because he was the youngest one, uncle was 6 years older than him. And the youngest aunt is 3 years older than him. So they would get all the change. And Grandma Sue had cut up a savings bank of a Coca-Cola bottle with a hole on the top, nailed down in a cupboard. And so he would have money there. The spirit of thrift. You have money, save it.
Mm.
When his mother was going to have a birthday, "Reggie, your mother's birthday is tomorrow. Do you want me to buy him a gift?" "Yes." "Okay, so I'll get it from your savings bank." "Sure." And so when he came home, there was the gift, but all his money was gone. "I can tell you to wake up my money." What is that? Don't spend everything.
Right.
You must save. Yes, you give gift, but don't take it all. So all of those things are already in him as he was growing up.
Yeah.
Financial responsibility, self-esteem, and one last thing, earning money on your own. So when he was 10 years old, he had a paper route, you know, because Afro American would give you money if you deliver it in the neighborhood. So
Oh yes, the Afro, yes.
American in
That was the largest newspaper at the time.
newspaper. It's delivered every Tuesday and Saturday. Tuesday and Saturday. And so he started with the neighborhood, the neighbors on the left side, right side, in front, started with 10. And over the course of 2 years, he was able to bring it to 100 subscribers.
Wow.
And at that time, it was getting heavier. He was getting into middle school and all that. And he was 12. So what did he do? He sold it to his best friend. Dan.
Clever.
What's leverage buyout? Because there was no down payment. And then you owe me $30. And you pay me $2.50 every week. So until he got the $30 back. And he was very strict. Look, the deal is you pay me. You should give me $2.50 now. And they would fight.
Wow. That's a leverage buyout.
That's on the other side. He allowed his best friend to buy the paper route, okay, and pay him little by little.
Interesting. This makes complete sense to me because in order to achieve extraordinary things in life, you have to be extraordinary, extraordinary. So he was doing things at a young age that were not ordinary, right? I wonder, what did he aspire to do? If you think about him at 15 or 16, where many of us, at 15, 16, I was thinking about girls, at 15 and 16. So what were his aspirations, do you believe, at that age?
The aunts told me they were together, because the aunt would bring him to Morgan State. You see, all of the sons and daughters of Sam and Sevilla Cooper went to college by GI Bill, or each one helping the other. So all of them, except one or two, but they went into business. All of them finished something. All right. So when the Aunt Charlotte, would bring Reginald to Morgan State, and she would take a taxi or somehow, and then they would talk together. And at that time, I think he was 7 years old. Aunt Charlotte told me, that when they left and she was paying, the driver had to look back. Who is this young little boy saying about, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer?
Wow.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
You know,
Interesting.
so he was
Interesting.
already, even at that age, he was already articulate and ambitious, that the taxi driver had to look back and say, who is this little guy
Wow.
saying all these things?
This is incredible. But once again, this makes sense. This makes sense. Now, you also mentioned the fact that he wanted to look a certain way. He wanted to look clean, spiffy. It seemed that when I see photos of him in his later part of his career, he's immaculately dressed. When I saw his book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? I think part of what attracted me to the book was that he was smiling, immaculately dressed with a cigar,
Yes.
So that dress sense, that look, was that part of, you think, his strategy?
It's been in with him. I mean, when he was growing up, his mother worked with Sears and would bring home things. Okay, and sometimes he would say, "Oh, no, I don't like that. I don't like that." And then so his mother was smart enough, so he would say, "Okay, here are things that the buyer told me would look good on you. You see, mom. You see, mom. She knows." But it was her choice. So the mother has instilled with him. And in fact, he wanted dungarees, jeans. And the mother insisted, no, no jeans, no jeans. Why? Because then you look like a ragamuffin. That,
Mm.
okay? And so it was when grandma, oh, come on, Carolyn. Okay? And the grandmother bought him finally jeans, and he was so happy. So even from there, he knows that the mother is very strict on how his comportment, of how he looks. And so that he carried that on. So when he can afford it, tailor-made suit from Cerruti, So
Yes, yes, yes. He was his dress sense was excellent,
yeah,
excellent. So
Hermes, Hermes ties.
yes.
Yes,
Oh yeah. I mean, I saw it. I saw it. Monogrammed everything. Wasn't his underwear was probably monogrammed. I mean, he was on top of things. So walk us through. So he's in school. So he goes to Virginia State, correct?
first Dunbar, first Catholic school, because his
Okay.
mother was very proud to tell everybody, I send my son to parochial school. In the inner city, there's public school, which is free, and parochial school, which is not. She was very proud that he was going to a parochial school. But then to go to high school, he said that he didn't make good grades. But
Really? In high school?
in the high school, no, 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 a parochial school,
Okay.
up to grade 8.
Oh, okay.
So you have to go now. And I think at that time, 1950s, it was still segregated. And so you cannot go to the good parochial school. You have to go somewhere else. So he went to Dunbar. And even at that time, he made due diligence. What public school is good, has a good sports, because he loved sports. He played,
Baseball.
yes, baseball, everything, football and all that. So he said, Dunbar. Dunbar is very strong in political sciences, and sports. Okay, so he chose it himself. Grade 9, going to grade 9, he was already doing due diligence.
Wow. Look at that. Look at that. So he decided where he wanted to go.
Yes.
He did the due diligence. For college, though, he ended up at Virginia State. Is that correct?
Yes,
Virginia State. Okay.
Yes.
Which, by the way, Virginia State is in Petersburg, Virginia,
Yes.
where my wife is
Came from.
from. Yes.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
my mother-in-law taught and was a dean at Virginia State University.
Oh, wonderful. How
Yes.
wonderful. So
Yes.
why Virginia State? Because he was the quarterback in high school. They gave him a scholarship.
Ah, okay. Okay.
So, he has 5 brothers and sisters, all going to school. And the father was working with the federal government, stepfather this time, Gene Fugit. And the mother was working in the post office. So they take turns. So he knew that he has to take care of himself. So by a football scholarship free at Virginia State.
Yeah, which incredible. So he's at Virginia State, he's playing football, but he's also, obviously he's focused on his academics as well.
No, 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 no.
No.
First, you have to be a good athlete. But by that time, somehow, I think he hurt his shoulder, so he can't really throw now. So he got dropped. After the first year, he got dropped. So you have no scholarship.
Mm.
So now he decided, all right, I have to finish. So he had to work. And so he divided his class so that certain days he would be able to go out and work, and certain days is school. And so he wrote down his schedule: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 7:30, wake up. 8 o'clock, whatever. All the way down to lights out. And then below that he wrote, to be a good lawyer, you have to work hard. Exclamation point. So it's like he programmed himself that he's able to maintain going to college, finishing it in 4 years, and at the same time excelling academically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what that taught me, because that was one part of the book that really hit home. And that was, you mentioned, to be a lawyer, you have to, was it excel? What was the phrase?
To be a good lawyer, you have to work hard.
You have to work hard. So to be a good lawyer, you have to work hard. That to me was his mantra. And so that was a mantra that he set. So he was already programming himself to know, I'm not just going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a good lawyer as a result of working hard. And I will work hard as a result of this schedule. So he has the schedule. So he has the schedule. He has the mantra, future looking. So how in the world does a Black man, right, at that time, in which we're talking, what, 1960?
1965.
1965.
Graduating. He was senior now.
1965. We're in the throes of the civil rights movement.
Exactly.
In the South, right? We have Virginia State, which is in the South. How in the world does he then get accepted into Harvard Law School without applying? How does he do that?
1965, the height of the civil rights movement. So Harvard Law School had Professor Frank Sanders, the Nazi, who escaped Germany and came to first London and then United States. And so in his mind, how do we join this movement? And what are they good at? Not rallying, not going out in the street. They teach law. And so for Blacks, for African Americans, very few are lawyers because they don't have father who are lawyers. So what do? Expose them to the law. And at that time, they devised and wrote to all of the historically Black colleges and universities, send us your best students send it to us. Basically, junior who is going into the senior, so that when they come back, they will talk about, oh, we were at Harvard Law School, the law was great, etc. All right. So when Reginald saw that, he said, I'm going to Harvard Law School. And everybody, his roommates, what? You're not even qualified. You're a senior, you're leaving. I am going. And so what did he do? He campaigned and pestered the professor who was going to give out the names, only 4. And so he was finally, what is it? A squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yes.
He was pestering him every time. I have here my essay, okay? And look, I got this grade. So the professor included him as the 5th. So he wasn't even supposed to be there, but he was so persistent, they included him. So he got into Harvard Law School. Now he told himself, all right, I have 8 weeks to stand on my head. That doesn't mean he's standing on it. That means to say, you give it your all.
So this was an 8-week summer program. So it was a conditional program that he had to excel in order to be accepted into the full program.
No. The rule is that this is not for you to enter Harvard Law School. This is for you to think about becoming a lawyer and apply anywhere. It doesn't mean that you are going to Harvard Law School. But Professor Sanders told me, Reginald was so brilliant, especially during the moot court. He himself, Professor Sanders, had to tell the admission officer, you've got to accept Reginald Lewis in Harvard Law School without applying.
Wow.
Yes. So when he went back home, because he said in the end, I just tried my best. It really doesn't matter if I was, allowed to enter Harvard Law School. For him, he did what he did. And so when he got that call from the secretary, are you Reginald Lewis? Yes. You are accepted to enter the class of 68. Yeah, accepted without even applying.
Without even applying, no LSAT.
No,
He didn't take an LSAT.
and so when he arrived at Harvard, he was told, okay, you have to fill this application. At Virginia State, of course, he didn't have enough money, so there would be tuition to pay. And they hounded him, or, they would not allow him to take exams, things like that. Harvard, they ask you, do you have enough money? No. Okay, you can borrow. So they gave him a loan of 1,500. And what an investment, because 20 years later, he returned it back with 3 million.
Good job, Harvard. Good job, Harvard, on that investment. So one point of that story, though, that I want to pull out is you mentioned that the professor lobbied on Mr. Lewis's behalf because he was so exceptional, in particular at moot court, which I know in moot court, to a large degree, the skill there is oratory.
Yes, you must be able to speak, logical. You must be comporting yourself. You're even-tempered, and you're strong. You're acting like Penny.
Yes, but every characteristic that you've talked about from he was 5 years old basically built itself to that moment. That's the reason why he was able to excel. So he then obviously goes to Harvard. Does he perform well at Harvard? He must.
He would tell me it was so intimidating at Harvard. So intimidating. Why? Because the teacher would talk about Irish history, what's happening there. And there would be somebody who knew everything about Irish history. Science. Somebody there had studied science on how the cell works. So he said he was intimidated. But Harvard has this group that you come together and you discuss the cases among yourselves so that when you go to class, you're prepared.
Okay.
So he had a group, multiracial, meaning to say it was not the group of just blacks. He had white friends, and one of them have remained a very good friend, Bill Slattery. That's obviously Irish, because after that, they both joined the legal services. That's extracurricular. And after that, they would go to their house. He was married then to a nurse, Jill, and they would continue the discussion.
And develop. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because notice how I automatically said, oh, he must have performed well. But thinking this is a kid from Baltimore who probably at that point hadn't traveled, right? Hasn't done it. And now he's in a completely new environment. This is the first time that he's probably in a predominantly white environment, because Virginia State is it's a black college, right? And so that makes sense. He was intimidated, but he rose to the occasion. He continued to fight. And he seems to me to be a fighter, right? He rises to the occasion. So
wait, while he was in high school, he continued to work. And his grandfather said, okay, for the summer, you work here in the suburban community, a Jewish private club. And so there he already saw, how do the rich act? Who knows how to recognize value? So he was listening, he was a busboy, you're 15, 16 years old, you carry the dirty dishes, but he hears stories. So already he had the concept of how rich white people act. And he recognized who of these men know value and who of these men do not. Because he was in charge of the card room for senior citizen ladies playing cards. And he would really bust his chops. And then the woman in charge would just give him $2. So he said, you don't recognize value. I gave you service and this is all you gave me. But in his mind, he was already making that as a high school student.
Wow. So do you think it was at 15 that he made that decision that he wanted to become the wealthiest person in the world?
Probably. Yes, probably. Because seeing the disparity, being in a suburban private club, seeing all the, rich Jewish clients. So he understood there is a way in the United States, there is different life. And so in his mind, that's where I want to be.
Interesting. Now, I have a question, right? And the reason why I ask this question is because, are you familiar with code switching? So code switching, in particular in the Black community, right? Well, we may talk a certain way, among only Black people. But then when we're in an environment with, say, white people or others, we'll then talk differently. So we'll switch the code, right? We'll talk different. I wonder, he was, because I think he's from Baltimore, right? A lot of my family's from Baltimore, right? I can't even understand them to this day, right? My family in Baltimore. So you have Baltimore. He went to Virginia State, this all Black school in Virginia State. He then goes to Harvard. Did he ever talk to you about literally just the language difference, the vernacular? Was that ever a topic? Because I'm fascinated.
No. But I've seen him. Now that you tell me about code, I've seen him code switch. Of course, he can talk trash with people, among his close friends, Black. Yeah, he talks trash. I've seen it. He doesn't have to tell me what it was. Now that you're explaining to me, I saw it. Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
knows what to do in what situation he is.
Yes.
In a situation where he is, he can speak. He knows opera. That was Virginia State. Meaning to say, he knows to be where they are. And he has a good friend, Sam Peabody, who is the Peabody of, the Brahmin of Boston, of Massachusetts. And so they would have lunch and he would observe and he would ask him, how do you do this? How do you do that? Like a mentor of how do you act that you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So he's always watching. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, and he had mentors. So did he start to identify his mentors coming out of Harvard? Is that really where?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even among Harvard, his friends were not just Black, they were white. Okay. They became good friends in that study class. They became very good friends. Why? Because it's dealing human to human, man to man. Okay.
Yes.
Not color to color, you're Black. No. You deal when you become friends with people of other nationality, of other ethnic group, then you understand we are all the same. We want the same things.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then he leaves Harvard. He passes the bar, I'm assuming.
Nope.
Right.
Nope. No.
He didn't pass the bar.
No. But he was in Paul Weiss, True Blue. I mean, the blue, corporate law. I mean, it's one of the top law firm in New York. What's important that I remember is that he demanded equal treatment because to the other white associates, like him, they would call Mr. Corman, Mr. Smith. But with him, it's Reggie. No, you call me Mr. Lewis. And so even now, when I talk about him to strangers, he's Mr. Lewis.
He's Mr. Lewis. This makes sense. Yeah. And I like that he spoke truth to power at that point, and he demanded that respect, because you have to demand respect in certain situations. So he is now an attorney at a top corporate law firm in New York. Is this when he meets this lovely lady in his life? Is this when he meets her?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Right.
I came from the Philippines, obviously, from my accent. I was born in the Philippines. And my father was like him. My father's father died when he was 12. And so his mother couldn't take care of 3 boys. He was the oldest. So he lived with a rich uncle in Daet, that's in the Bicol region. This uncle was very entrepreneurial. He had a movie house, he had a gasoline station, he had insurance business, just very, very entrepreneurial. And that's where he was in high school. But in his mind, he's going to the best university, the Harvard of the Philippines, University of the Philippines, and study law. But by the time he was already in law school, at 21 years old, he started his business of lumber. And so he did not study. And he became very successful. We had a furniture company. But he said, one of my children, we're 5, will be a lawyer and will do, all my dreams of becoming a congressman or whatever it was. And so he selected me. I'm the first girl. 2 boys before me, and I'm the first girl. And I guess because I was the more articulate, the more daring, Loida, you'll be the lawyer. So when I became a lawyer, I passed the bar, go around the world with your mother to pick up your sister in New York. She was studying at Columbia University for her master's.
Okay.
And so we arrived in September. And she's graduating in May. So what do? Work. Of course, I had the tourist.
Oh, this makes sense. You get a job.
I'm on tourist visa. I don't want just to wait and count my fingers or go shopping or. So I looked at the Village Voice then, help wanted, and then I saw Civil Rights Research Council needs administrative assistant. I said, there I go. So in my application, I said, I am a law student. Why? Because if I said I'm a lawyer, you're overqualified.
Right. That's true.
You won't stay long. Okay, so I was accepted as the administrative assistant. And then I introduced my sister to my boss, Ray Glover, classmate of Reginald. And so when they were going out on a date, Loida, do you want a blind date? Double date with your sister and you and a blind date? I said, sure. Why not? Adventure. We're here for an adventure. We're going back. And that's when I met Reginald Lewis on a blind date.
On a blind date. How about that for a successful blind date? Now, I have to ask, it's a blind date. You are a Filipino woman. You are matched with a African-American man. What was going on in your mind at that point? And what year is this too? This is
1968.
1968. I mean,
December 8th. December 8th.
December 8th, 1968. You are on a blind date with a black man, right? So what's going on in your mind the moment that you see him?
Well, for me, I was raised, thank God. My father, because he was poor, the way he raised us was never distinguishing people. Oh, he's rich, you go there. She's poor, don't go with her. No, he really, my mother and my father raised us to treat everybody equal. Yes, he's African American, but what is that? what really was good on that first meeting was that whatever thing I say, he has something to say. And whatever he has to say, I have something to add. So we really had a conversation nonstop on that first date.
Wow. Okay. So
I have to tell you, because he was black, I was going to talk about, the black men that I know, like Joe Louis and things like that. He immediately stopped me and he said, I'm international.
I love that. Hey, I'm international.
Yes. What is that? Don't treat me like I'm a black man. I'm international. And sure enough, 20 years later, he bought Beatrice International and in Paris.
Wow. I absolutely. Now, you know what's going to happen now, Mrs. Lewis. You know how many men are going to be using that line now? Hey, I'm international. All right. So clearly it was a great first date. And I want to get into the details of your relationship if I can in a moment, but let's keep going on his career now. So he's an attorney at this great firm. What's his next career move?
All right. Although he was not, his grades was not like stellar at Harvard Law School, there is one subject that he had an A+. And what was that? Mergers and acquisition, corporate law.
Yes.
Securities law. Okay. So Louis Laws is the sort of like preeminent scholar on corporate law. And so when he wrote his thesis, I'm so sorry I lost it, but he wrote a thesis that he got an A+. The first line, in order to be wealthy, you must do merger and acquisition. I don't do it, right. I can't remember it now, but that's the first line, merger and acquisition. So what does that mean? If you really want to be wealthy, don't start a company because 90% fail. So why would you bet on something that will fail? Buy a company and create value. So in his mind, he was a very successful lawyer. We had all the trappings of a successful middle class. We had our own brownstone in Chelsea, in Manhattan. We had a vacation home, 3-bedroom in East Hampton. All right. We had a foreign car, Mercedes 450 SL, top down.
I know that 450 SL.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
But he was thinking higher. As a lawyer, you only have 24 hours to bill your clients. There's a limit. Okay. Of course, if it's good, you have, you can get a little more. But in business, the sky is the limit.
Yes.
And so in back of his mind, buy a company, buy a company. So very successful businesses, but always there's a trial to buy a company.
Okay. Okay. So that was the next move
That was
to buy a company.
buy a
Okay.
company. Yes, yes, yes. Sadly, the first company he wanted was Park Sausages. All right. That's from Baltimore. You remember,
Yes.
you were too young, but we remember it. More Park Sausages, Mom, please.
I've heard that before. I have heard that.
Very early on. So he bought it and he had the money in his briefcase. He was able to raise the money, 3 million. But by the time he
Oh,
came,
wait, I'm sorry, Mrs. Lewis. You're saying that so he raised $3 million,
yes,
but how does he do this? Because
let me see. Not that he raised $1 million, but they sort of agreed that he would be able to buy it for 3 million. Nothing in writing, but he agreed. So he was raising it, and he had it, meaning to say it's not in the bank, but he was able to. And when he came to call them back, it was sold to somebody else.
mm, okay, but I would imagine that process emboldened him, gave him more confidence. I can do this because he had to first convince the company to sell at that price. Then he had to go out try to get the commitments, the 3 million. Okay, so that company goes, but then where's his next company that he goes after?
Okay. All right. Next company, while he was practicing law, but on the side, he would look at companies and he wanted to buy radio stations. And somehow, before he could get the financing together, it was sold again.
Okay.
Failure. Now,
Okay.
third failure around 1974, 78, he found a furniture company in Los Angeles. Okay, they're selling it because the owner was 63 years old. He has been doing it for like 18 years, and his partner wants to cash in. And so he had this furniture company, and he was able to, after 18 months of going to Los Angeles, coming back, sending flowers to his wife for birthdays, getting a job for the daughter in New York, all of that. So he was finally get this man to sign a contract to sell to him. And
Wow.
yes, and he was able to get financing, 8 million in the bank.
8 million. All right. I'd love to unpack this a little bit. So this is 1978.
Yes, 78. That's right. That's right.
78.
Remember,
Okay.
78, yeah.
78. So, and that was 18 months of working that deal before. Okay. What was the year roughly that he tried to buy Park Sausages? When was that?
I think about 73, 74.
73, 74. Okay. So let's say it's 5 years in between, roughly. And he had this idea of gaining wealth through mergers and acquisitions in the
Company.
in the 60s when he was in school, right?
No, no, no. Because he graduated in 68. This
In
is we got married in 69.
in 69. Oh, okay. Okay.
70, he left Paul Weiss and started his own law firm.
Okay. So he starts his own law firm. Okay,
Yeah.
70. So between roughly 72, he's running his own law firm, but he's looking for companies to buy. And he doesn't successfully buy a company until 78. So now we're talking about really 6 years in there. What do you think pushed him to keep going? Because that was his vision. That was his dream. Acquire a company, buy a company. And he tries for one, it's unsuccessful. He goes to another, it's unsuccessful. He goes to another many years later, he needs 18 months to work the deal. What kept him going after the vision? And the reason why I ask this is because so many entrepreneurs who are listening, who are watching right now, have a vision like Mr. Lewis had. They have a dream. They're told no once, they're told no twice, and maybe they give up. Or they're told no 3 times, maybe they give up. What do you think kept him going those 6 years?
Why? Why should white guys have all the fun? He's all these white guys buying companies. Why can't he do it? Why can't he do it? Okay, so that's one part. But the second part is he knew how to prepare himself. Okay, you're a lawyer, you must be a successful lawyer. And what bank should you use? JP Morgan. At that time, JP Morgan had local banks. They were, like Citibank, like Chase Manhattan. His law firm opened a business account with JP Morgan, Bob Winters. In order to buy a business, you need financing. Who will finance you? A bank.
Yes.
All right. So you prepare all of that together. So during this time, yes, he's practicing law, doing very well. Okay. But again, his mind is in order to become really rich,
Right.
you need to buy a company.
You need to buy it.
And create value.
I see it. And he's building the relationships, those key relationships like at JP Morgan,
Yes.
right? I'm sure he's expanding his network as well, which allows him to raise more money.
Yes, yes.
It makes sense.
What's the word? Hustling?
Hustling.
Always hustling. Always hustling.
Always,
Always
every day I'm hustling. Every day I'm hustling.
a calling card, always with his calling card, giving it out to everyone as a lawyer and creating network.
Yes, yes. Okay, so this makes sense. So he finally buys a company, and you said it's a furniture company.
Leisure company. Very big margins, because a furniture company is like tubes, textile, and then a factory, and then you sell it at great price,
Yeah.
1,000 margin or whatever it was. Very good net cash flow, very good cash flow.
All right, I love it. So he bought the company. Then what does he eventually do with the company?
No. The furniture company, okay, he had 8 million in the bank. He started to have second thoughts because there is an employment contract. Mr. Lewis have never run a furniture company. So you need the manager, the owner, to stay with you for 3 years just to get the hang of it.
Sure.
And so in my mind, the lawyer had a change of heart. He didn't want to work for a black guy. Even the black guy is giving him $8 million. The day of closing, he started to say, well, Reg wanted me to keep 2 books, one for IRS and one for ourselves, which is a lie. So with the temper of, what? You bleep, bleep, bleep.
Beep, you beep.
Bleep, bleep, bleep. Oh,
That was the code switch right there.
yes. There you go. Everybody knew. His lawyer, Charles Clarkson, the banker, they knew the deal is done. You cannot continue with this deal when the owner doesn't want, is breaking it, telling a lie and breaking it.
Wow. So that deal is lost.
It was lost. The deal broke at the end.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So now what does he do?
I didn't know this until I read his book. He was close to a nervous breakdown. He never told me, but he was close to a breakdown. Because when he came home in our brownstone, our bedroom is up on the top floor. He said he felt the walls were closing down on him. Okay, his work of 18 months down the drain.
Right.
Okay,
all of the I'm sure countless resources, money spent.
Our money, our money, including putting up. Well, anyway, all right. So next day, the lawyer calls him, Reg, Tamlamia. Reg, he defamed you. Because when you tell somebody a lie in front of everybody, that's defamation.
Yes.
Okay? Yes. Sue the bastard. So the lawyer writes a very strong letter to the owner of this company and blah, 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 blah. He settled. Big amount.
Yes. He settled to include the sale of the company.
No sale. No. By that time, the bank, Chase Manhattan, they are saying, no, forget that. And what did we do? Do a down payment for a summer house in the Hamptons.
I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
4th of July. We leave at 7 and we arrive at midnight.
Oh my goodness.
Okay? But even then, the air is different. And when we woke up, this is the Hamptons. So on that weekend with Leslie, our 7-year-old, we would say, can you just take care of Leslie? We're going around looking at homes. And we probably saw maybe 30 homes, not during that weekend, but the next weekend. And we identified this house, beautiful 3-bedroom, double height ceiling, in the forest. Okay.
Beautiful.
And so he said, it cost this much. Okay, so we were trying to haggle and all that. Okay, I'll give you your price, but leave everything there. Leave the furniture, leave the plants, except bed sheets and towels, leave everything. And so we closed in end of July, and we had it for the rest of the summer.
But not only is that like a beautiful story, but it sounds like that was important for his mental health to be able to just get out of the city, get clean air. Yeah, okay, which is good.
And that's where he said he started to heal. Why? Because it was so painful. This is the third deal. He failed. 3 times he failed. So it's not like in my mind, because the guy was racist. He didn't want to sell and work for a black man. Okay? But he didn't want to point, oh, this one. He pointed 3 fingers to himself. I am doing something wrong. To have the humility to say, 3 failures,
Right.
it's not their fault. They're choosing that. And so he started to read the book, prospectus of companies that being sold, being bought. He's reading it like a novel. Ron Perelman, Sir Jimmy Goldsmith, all of that read. And then he understood why every weekend we would be in East Hampton. And so he would there be reading and all that. And as he was teaching Leslie how to ride a bike, she was 7 years old. Yes, Leslie, like this. And in his mind, I got it. I am doing something wrong. I am doing everything myself. My law firm is my lawyer. My investment banker is myself because I found the deal. I closed the deal. My accountant is myself because I knew economics. He studied economics. So I knew, how to read the balance sheet and all that. And all of these successful buyouts have their own lawyer, have their own accountant, their own investment banker outside. So they are invested in me. They're invested in the deal. Because
the deal
doesn't go, you don't get paid.
This is a massive inside tip. I think this is a very important strategy, because what allowed this strategy to happen is first for Mr. Lewis to be introspective, to say 3 deals didn't work. What am I doing wrong? Even though clearly at least one of them he was dealing with the racist, he still had to say, what am I doing wrong? So he had to self-evaluate. So there's self-awareness, there's self-evaluation. Then he had to go out and learn. So you said he's reading these prospectuses. He's understanding companies who are being bought. How are they being bought? And he's studying that. Then he applies what he's learned to now change his strategy. That's substantial. Also, roughly how old is he at this point?
He was born in 1942. By 84, he buys McCall Pattern Company.
Wow. So not until 84. Okay. So that's 4, 6. So he's 42 roughly at that point. This is also, I think, a major point. And quite honestly, when I think back to Mr. Lewis's story, I always think, wow, he was probably worth 400 million when he was in his 30s, or when he's not. It's not until he's 42 years old that he really now makes his mark in terms of leverage buyouts at 42. This is big. And he's had 3 major losses at this point. Okay. Take me home. So we're now, it's 84, right? He's now remantled. He has a team. It's not just himself. Who are we looking to buy right now in 84?
All right. So I don't know when it happened, but McCall Pattern Company is part of the Beatrice deals. One of the big conglomerates was acquired, leverage buyout, meaning they borrowed all the money to buy General Foods. And one of General Foods' company is McCall. It's a conglomerate. It has nothing to do with food. Okay, so they are going to sell so that they can pay down the debt. But what's important there is totally leveraged. Now you can't do it. but they want him for a $22 million deal. They want him to put up $1 million. It's impossible. You're a successful lawyer. You don't accumulate $1 million in assets.
Right.
We have our vacation house, but that's not $1 million. So where do you go? JP Morgan. JP Morgan, who has his account since 1972 when he went out on his own. Yes.
Wow. That is another part of the story I didn't know. And I'm glad that you walked me back to the fact that he, in 72, decided to begin to build the relationship with JP Morgan strategically, knowing he would need them at some point. And now here he is needing them. What is this? I don't know, over a decade later.
Yes.
Right.
His best friend. He always asked. Some of the people are too scared to ask or too proud to ask. He always asks, and his best friend. Now, which bank? He is working, the best friend, Cliff Christoph, is working in Citibank as a manager. But he said, go to JP Morgan. And
okay. He borrows the $1 million from JP Morgan.
Well, actually, 500,000.
Yeah. All right. So let me make sure I'm following this. So McCall, it was a $22 million buyout. They needed $1 million in cash. He got 500,000 from the bank.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the signature, no collateral.
No collateral. Yeah. The other 500,000, he has 500,000.
No. He has been all these years is the lawyer for AA Mesbic, African American Minority Investment Companies. AA Mesbic, created by President Nixon.
Oh, okay.
Black capitalism. So he has been, their lawyer. Anyone who wants to buy or sell and buy and borrow, he was the lawyer. So he went to Equico, that's equitable insurance. They set aside a certain amount of money, and the government gave them three times. Okay, so they had capital to invest. So they said, but 13% interest a year, very high interest. Yeah,
very high. But he took the deal. He took the deal.
500,000 they lent him, so he had $1 million in cash.
Wow! So he has $1 million in cash,
and everything else was raised by Bear Stearns.
Okay, and now he has finally purchased his first company. Yeah, Mr. Lewis, that's what I'm talking about, right? He purchases his first company, and this is 84. 84, correct?
1984, yes.
84, he's 42. So 42, he gets his really first big win.
First big one.
So now what happens? Yeah. Now what do we do?